Hi everyone, I'd like to welcome you to Edgecore SONiC Solutions for Open Networking in the Cloud, together with Edgecore Networks and the Open Compute Project. My name is Ciara McCarthy. I'm the Global Marketing Director for EPS Global. So this is the 9th episode in our webinar series called It's Open Networking. You can access our past webinars and sign up for our future ones here on our Bright Talk channel. We have people on today from all across the US, Europe, Africa, the Middle East, Peru, India, Taiwan, Indonesia, and that's just to name some of the places. You're all very welcome and thank you for joining us today. So to kick off, I'd like to introduce you to our speakers for today. I'll start with Barry McGinley. Barry works for EPS Global. He is our systems engineer for EMEA. He primarily works on proof of concepts for data center, service provider, and enterprise deployments. I'll actually show everybody so everybody can say a quick hello. Barry, he works on POCs for data center, service provider, and enterprise deployments, and he leads the adoption of new bare metal hardware for carrier and telecom solutions available. So he provides the first layer of tech support for our customers, and he has an in-depth expertise of the open networking landscape, covering all of the open source software and hardware options. Barry's based in Dublin, Ireland, same as myself. He's the author of a very popular tech blog on our website at epsglobal.com. He'd also like me to add that he's also an avid Celtic supporter and enjoys a pint of Guinness. So joining us today also is Michael Ward. He's the VP of Business Development in Software for Edgecore Networks. In this role, he is responsible for the software solutions to enable customers with choice in open networking from Edgecore's third-party NOS partnerships, as well as open source software offerings such as SONiC and Dent. Michael represents Edgecore on the board of the Linux Foundation's Dent project. He has held a variety of positions in the networking software space at companies including IBM, LVL7 Systems, Lenovo, and Broadcom. Also with us today is Steve Helvey from the OCP. Steve is the VP of Channel Development for the Open Compute Project. In his role, he helps to educate organizations on the benefits of open hardware designs and the value of community-driven engineering for the data center. As a strong advocate of open source and circular economy business models, he works closely with solution providers and manufacturers to drive adoption of OCP with the focus on sustainable, scalable infrastructure. So if everyone wants to give a quick wave, and I'll turn back on the slides. So just to give you a bit of information about EPS for anybody who doesn't know us, we specialize in open networking solutions that help businesses take control over how they configure and scale their networks using bare metal hardware that's more cost effective to buy and it's more efficient to run. We have all of the hardware, software, and technical resources to help you deploy open, disaggregated, and standards-based solutions that deliver the high-quality connectivity that your customers demand, all while delivering you cost savings. We've 28 global locations, and we carry stock so you can save yourself the time and money, not to mention the hassle of dealing with multiple vendors and delivery timelines. We're also a member of the Open Compute Project and a solution provider on their marketplace. So with that, I would like to hand you over to Barry McGinley from EPS.
Thanks, Ciara, for the lovely introduction. I haven't had a pint of Guinness and I don't know when, actually. It'll probably be another 3 or 4 months. But thanks, everybody, for joining us today, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening. So I'm Barry. I'm a network engineer with EPS, primarily working in open networking, as Ciara said. And what we're going to have a look at today, quick intro into EPS and what we actually do in open networking. I will have a look at the state of open networking from last year and have a look into 2021, the origins of SONiC and SI, which is the switch abstraction interface. Then Mike will take us through Edgecore SONiC solution, the use cases, and then Steve will have a look at the OCP ecosystem, and we'll finish up with a Q&A, obviously, time dependent. Okay, so EPS. So Ciara said we're about 21 years old, but since 2013, we've been involved in open networking, and that came about because we became distributors for Edgecore Networks. But it was very early in open networking, and we had to start evangelizing and educating people about what open networking was about. And as well, the second part of that is the hardware is only one part of it. We had to start talking to the NOS vendors. So you'll see some of them there on the left-hand side. So we'd talk with PK, we'd work with PK8 quite a lot. Pluribus Networks, so Pluribus have an adaptive cloud fabric and adaptive monitoring fabric, lab automation solution as well. IP and Fusion are mainly based in the telco now. They still have a data center solution. Down the bottom there, you see Volta and VxLAN, their routing softwares. RT Brick and NetElastic, again, routing with a more on the virtual broadband network gateway. Netris and Apstra are orchestration and automation platforms. Kaloom is P4, and that is only a snapshot of the software. So it can get a little daunting, I suppose. So, and that's where we come in. So we provide turnkey solutions. So for both the software vendors and our customers. So when people are looking in at open networking, they see 20 operating systems. They see a heap of hardware manufacturers, which software works with which transceivers are then interoperable with the hardware. We take all that hassle out of it. So we'll install the NOSes for both the NOS vendors and the customer, do the licensing, bundling transceivers. So basically the switches are ready to slide into a rack, which definitely takes some of the pain out of open networking. So successes in 2020, the telco market, massive success through the Telecom Infra project and the ONF. So cell site routers, I think AT&T are installing 60,000 of these in their network. And again, it's the software that kind of makes this. Obviously, the boxes are great. Don't get me wrong. Edgecore, Eufy Space, a couple of guys making them, but software from Adva, Infinera, Volta, IP and Fusion, VxLAN. There's a long list, and they all have their own little niche area. Open transponders, the Cassini is from Edgecore again with IP and Fusion's Ocnos sitting on it. So we have a few implementations of that in the States, some in South America, Africa, and Europe, and then edge and aggregation. We've been waiting on this edge that everyone's been talking about for a long time now, and it's starting. We thought 2020 was going to be the big year for it, but we have the software, which is important, and we have the hardware. So that's starting to move. So 2021 should be a big year there. The next area is 400 gig. It's slow, but we started to see adoption of 400 gig last year. And then this is quite interesting, actually, moving into retail and campus and enterprise networks with Dent. So I think it's the last area open networking hasn't really been successful in. There have been successes. PK8 have had some success there. And I know Cumulus, at the start of 2020, we're looking at campus Cumulus networks. Basically, their data center customers had asked them, they use Ansible in the data center and they wanted to use the same in their campus network. So they went off and built the features they require, because you don't use spanning tree, port security, and multi-gigabit. So they added all of that, but obviously Cumulus were acquired by Mellanox NVIDIA, so it seemed to die a bit of a death. But then Dent was released in December of this year. So Dent is an open source operating system from the Linux Foundation. Amazon, of all people, are involved, who aren't very well known for their kind of collaborative, cooperative way of doing stuff. So Amazon, Edgecore, Marvell, switch ASIC manufacturer, Mellanox, and as well, one of the problems with retail and campus was that the 1 gig switches, and primarily 1 gig is used in campus and retail with 10 gig aggregation, they were too expensive. So the 1 gig switch and then put a NOS on top of it, it ended up far too expensive. So there's now a new switching range using Marvell switching ASICs, which are very cost friendly, and then with an open source operating system on it, it could be a really good solution for next year. The first version of that, incidentally, is called Arthur Dent, after the main protagonist from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So routing software and hardware maturity. Again, the hardware was here, but we're kind of waiting on the software, and the same guys that are doing the cell site routers are here. And yeah, it was towards the end of last year starting to be quite successful, and we have all the areas of routing now. So core routing, aggregation, edge, peering, and so on and so forth. some other successes: fiber to the home, fiber to the everything. So obviously governments globally are throwing money at people to build networks to provide gigabit broadband, and that's been a big success last year and will continue to be in open networking. Open line systems, some really good companies out there. Smart Optics are one for DCI interconnect, or Metro Networks, or Open Road M's, lab automation, Pluribus. I think our next webinar is actually with Pluribus Networks and lab automation, monitoring and analytics. And basically every single one of these could be a webinar in itself. And this is only scratching the surface of the solutions and possibilities that are out there. So challenges in 2020. There was nobody home basically all year. So there's nobody in the data center. So a lot of projects were on hold, expecting a big year out of data center in open networking, but it didn't transpire. I was delivering most of the stuff to people's houses in EMEA over the last year. The second part is one size does not fit all. And I suppose this comes down to education and about open networking. So I think people can take a liking to a specific software and it may not actually fit their needs. So it's up to us, I suppose, to figure out solutions that will fit their needs properly. And as well, I suppose SONiC is something we're looking at that may end up be a one size fits all for the data center, but at the minute, that's not the case with open networking. And then finally, acquisitions. So Cumulus Networks were bought by Mellanox NVIDIA, Big Switch Networks were bought by Arista, and Apstra was recently bought by Juniper Networks. And I suppose you can look at this two ways. You can say it shows the success of open networking, that these guys are being bought for a pretty penny, but it also erodes a bit of confidence in open networking. So guys say they did Edgecore and Cumulus deployment, and a couple of months later, they're told you'll still have your support contract, but it's not what they got into. They got into it for open networking, and now they don't feel like they are. So there's never been a better time for SONiC, basically. The gap was filled with SONiC, and the gap has been quickly filled for Big Switch Networks as well by Pluribus. Apstra are still being sold to third parties, I think, but there's another company, Netris, there. So it won't take long for the gap to be filled, but